You may not know this, but Jesus was actually very unpopular among the religious and politically correct. In fact, many of the religious and politically connected of his time were so appalled by his behavior that they actually regarded him as being one who hung out with the bad crowd. They would even say of Jesus that he hung out with sinners. And that's something that doesn't really translate into our context. Many people have read that and thought, oh, does that mean Jesus would go to strip clubs and hang out in bars? And that's not at all what it meant. Jesus was a rabbi. So he was supposed to be part of the religious elite. He's supposed to be part of that community and do what is done and accepted as part of that community. For one thing, Jesus was supposed to call disciples who fitted into that mold. Instead, he went and called fishermen, he went and called tax collector, he went and called someone who was a political zealot, political extremist of his time. Rabbis were supposed to hang out with rabbis. Rabbis were supposed to rub shoulders with the Sanhedrin and the religious elite, and Jesus didn't do that. But instead, Jesus hung out with ordinary people. He hung out with sick people. And for the religious elite, a lot of these people were regarded as sinners because according to the thinking of the day, if you had some persistent illness in your life, it's probably because you sinned and it's probably because God has brought this sickness upon you as judgment. And yet Jesus associated with people like this. He even ate with them. Jesus even associated with tax collectors. And I love this because in the time, these guys were regarded by the political and the religious elite as the scum of the earth. These guys were sellouts. They were working for the enemy. They were working for the Roman Empire, collecting taxes from the poor Jewish people, and they were making a great living out of it. Now, none of this would really be such a big deal if Jesus was just an ordinary rabbi. But he was no ordinary rabbi. He had a huge following. Jesus was performing miracles that was attracting massive crowds. And Jesus' teaching was so profound. He was teaching the Bible like it was nobody else's business. And this became a huge problem for the religious leaders of the time. As grown-ups, we often pretend that we're over the childish schoolyard antics of our youth. But it's amazing how quickly, when you throw something like jealousy into the mix, how a bunch of grown men become bitter and nasty. And this is exactly what was happening. These religious leaders, at their core, were jealous of Jesus. And so when you read them saying things like Jesus associated with sinners, Jesus was eating with these unrighteous people, what you really are reading is a bunch of jealous people trying to discredit Jesus. But the more important point is this, that Jesus associated himself with ordinary people. He didn't judge people based upon their group identity, which was very politically incorrect in his time and seems to be very politically incorrect today. Jesus judged every single person as an individual, and he related to every person as an individual. So that meant that there was no person on this planet who was out of bounds for Jesus. He never judged people upon their immutable physical characteristics. Even a man who was filled with thousands of demons, Jesus had time for that man. The only people Jesus didn't have time for were the religious people. So what is the message in this for us today? First of all, I think there's a warning to not come to Jesus with any religious formula. Come to Jesus exactly as you are. Be honest about who you are and where you come from. You see, religious formulas, religious systems are man-made structures whereby man has control, man can manipulate, man gives power to an elite group. Jesus doesn't operate in this way. Jesus operates in relationship with one another. Jesus has time for any person who comes to him, but he will challenge you. He will challenge you deeply. But the thing about the challenge that Jesus brings is very different from the challenge of the religious system. Jesus' challenge will ultimately boil down to this: are you willing to trust him? Unfortunately, in most religious settings today, the word faith is used all over the place, but there's actually very little faith. There are very few people who truly trust Jesus. If you want to walk with Jesus, if you want to become a follower of Jesus, I want to urge you to find people who genuinely trust Jesus and connect yourself to those people. Walk with those people. But Jesus will always continue to challenge us. He always is challenging me. He's challenging me to trust Him more deeply. And He's challenging me to be real about my weakness so that He can use it to become a strength for Him. A great example of this is Peter. Peter walked with Jesus and lived with Jesus for 3 years, and yet at his crisis moment, at his point of weakness, he denied Jesus 3 times. But Jesus knew that Peter was going to fail in this way, and before he had even done it, Jesus was already praying for Peter that when Peter had failed, that he would be restored, and that his failure will actually become a point out of which he can strengthen the other followers. Jesus will be found by anybody who seeks Him and is willing to trust Him. I hope that this video has been meaningful to you. If it has, please subscribe, please like it and share this video, and I'll see you guys next time.